What's going on, guys? It's fight season MMA, and today I want to do a video talking about the top 10 best trash talkers right now inside the UFC organization. There is so many people who used to trash talk in the UFC, but anymore, there's not that many people who still carry out the art of throwing shade at each individual opponent that they have in the fashion that a lot of people used to do. There used to be witty comebacks, all this different type of stuff. They used to get the pressers bopping so much more than they usually were now. Not saying we never see it again, but there's a few individuals in the organization currently that truly bring that trash talk with them every single time they step in the octagon or step in the pressers. But these are the guys that you don't want to get into a verbal altercation with, because 9 times out of 10 they will beat you in these standpoints. Now ultimately, trash talk is something that could happen before the fight, in the fight, a lot of different places, but ultimately it's just how effective you can use it and of how you can go in there and make your own name for it and ultimately use it to win fights. And you might not think that trash talk can be that effective, but genuinely, trash talking can really effectively flip a fight to make it something that is completely different from what it should be. So in this video, I want to talk about the top 10 best trash talkers, but before we get into it, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe. That is the best way to help the channel grow. And while you're down there, please turn on the post notifications so you guys are always notified about UFC content releasing every single day. But without further ado, let's jump right into the video talking about the top 10 best trash talkers in the UFC currently. At number 10, I have Kevin the Trailblazer Holland. Kevin Holland is one of the funniest individuals inside the UFC because he talks so much smack to each one of his opponents. Now, it might be not the, it might be less heartfelt than a lot of other people, but Kevin Holland talks smack at the presser, in the octagon. He talks smack any single chance he gets, and you could even see him flapping his lips inside the octagon. That makes Kevin Holland special from a lot of different people. There's clips of Kevin Holland asking, a lot of different stuff in the octagon and at the presser saying some stuff. He's just such a funny individual, and trash talking just comes by nature to Kevin Holland. And I think he's one of the most witty fighters currently inside the organization, but also someone who really enjoys going in there and swinging with little gloves on and going in there and trash talking, just being a little bit of a part of that. But really, Kevin Holland is one of those fighters that will step in there and talk with any single person, no matter how skilled you are, no matter how big you are, no matter the opponent. He was trash talking Khamzat, Chimaev. Really, Kevin Holland is one of the best fighters to trash talk inside the organization. That's why Kevin Holland is number 10 on this list. At number 9, best trash talkers inside the organization, I actually have Marlon Chito Vera. Now, Marlon Vera has come into his own, especially when he's trash talking Sean O'Malley and like Henry Cejudo and all these guys. He said that Sean O'Malley would be the next Adam 22 at the infamous UFC seasonal press conference last December. He said that. He also said that Sean O'Malley, can't get on him. He can't say all this different type of stuff. And Chito Vera is actually pretty witty when it comes to all this different type of stuff when it comes to trash bags. He's got very good remarks. He's got a lot of different stuff on him. And genuinely, Chito's a pretty funny guy when he steps in the octagon. I think that there's a lot of people who trash talk very stupidly, but I think that Chito Vera's got a good head on his shoulders. He knows what to say, when to say. He might not say the most stuff, but what he does says, like that Adam 22 remark, was a really, really, really funny thing to say about Sean O'Malley. Ultimately, I do think that Chito Vera might not be the greatest fighter in the organization. He might not be one of the top bantamweights currently, but he's got a very good head in being able to throw remarks out and being able to talk about a lot of different individuals and a lot of different things about their background. At number 8, I have the king of cringe himself, Henry Cejudo. Now, you might say, whatever, Henry Cejudo is this, Henry Cejudo is that, he's cringe, he does all this type of stuff, but Henry Cejudo is an effective trash talker. He's done it well in his past in his UFC career, and ever since he's come back, like against that Aljamain Sterling fight, he really kind of got into Aljo's head and kind of rattled him a tiny bit. And even with that Merab Dvalishvili fight, I think he actually sort of got to Merab as well. Not saying it really affected the fight, but Henry Cejudo went out there and beat Merab in that first round pretty handily, and I thought that was a very interesting thing to go on in that fight. I think Henry Cejudo kind of prepares this stuff prior, but he talks a lot of smack to any single person in the organization. It could be someone, who's not even in his division. It could be a fellow opponent. It could be someone like this or that. But I think that Henry Cejudo has built his name, the king of cringe, off of how much trash talk he does, and whatever it's good, bad, or anywhere in between, he throws that out there to try to get into your opponent's head. And I think that that is something that is incredibly valuable for him to really be able to do. Trash talking might not work 100% of the time, but the more you throw it out there, the more shots you take. Yes, you're likely to miss it, but the more shots you'll make. And I think Henry Cejudo lives by that, especially with his trash talk, because he trash talks so much. Whether it's good or not is a different thing, but he's definitely rattled some of his opponents with it. That's why Henry Cejudo is number 8 on my list. Now, at number 7, I have Machado Garry. And Ian Machado Garry is someone who really gets into trash talk fights every single time that he steps in foot in the octagon. I know with Jeff Neal, he posted pictures of the Jeff Neal mugshot after that fight was scheduled for UFC 292. It ended up getting canceled, but Ian Machado Garry made t-shirts with Jeff Neal's mugshot on them at that fight at 292 with Neil Magny. He ultimately said Magny said something out of context, and Garry took it as he beats his kids. It was an absolutely crazy thing, and he was flipping Magny off inside the octagon. Gary's got a lot of steam on him, and he genuinely goes in there and talks so much trash every single time he steps foot in the octagon. I think it's so good for the sport to see Garry kind of following Conor McGregor's footsteps, not be him exactly, but take a lot of those similarities with the trash talk, with the Irish heritage and everything like that to ultimately bring himself up. I think the trash talk makes him a little bit hated, but I think Ian Garry is comfortable living in that villain spotlight, and I really think he goes out there and thrives in it. As we know, he's an undefeated fighter. He does everything he needs to be, but Ian Garry really trash talks a lot with every single one of his opponents, namely Neil Magny. That fight, he was absolutely blasting him for something he said that wasn't even true. Neil Magny does not beat his children. That is not something I'm saying right now, but Garry took something out of context and ran with it to really make this massive thing. Ian Garry, number 7 trash talker in the UFC currently. The number 6 best trash talker in the organization right now is I have Jon Jones, and I don't think Jon Jones trash talks as much as he was, but I kind of look at his past and all the crude stuff he used to say to people like Daniel Cormier, Rampage Jackson, all that type of stuff. I had to include him on the list because I know he still has it in there, and I think all the trash talk would be coming out with Tom Aspinall if they eventually fought. You know, I think Jon Jones's trash talk stemmed from his extreme confidence, knowing that he was better than any single person of the organization, telling DC that he would go kill him in there if there was anything that would go down, and that he was comfortable doing so. Talking Rampage Jackson, I think it was, where he said that you're not the greatest UFC light heavyweight. It's my time, and I can say that because I'm better than you, and I will go in there and smack you, which he did. You know, I think Jon Jones is one of those fighters that has that upward supreme confidence in all of his ability inside the organization, and I think he goes in there and shows it every single time he steps foot in the octagon. And yes, he might be cocky, he might be this, he might be that, but Jon Jones is an absolute bad man within the octagon, and I think it is 100% guaranteed, especially when he provides that trash talk to not only get the fans behind him, but show every single person of why he is the quote-unquote GOAT of the organization. Jon Jones has said some absolutely mean stuff to a lot of individuals, and that trash talk hasn't been brought out really in his last 2 fights. I guess it did a little bit more with Stipe, but really Jon Jones has shown in the past that he is one of the most crude trash talkers inside the organization. Now, at number 5, I have Joaquin Buckley. Joaquin Buckley gets into a fight with every single person inside the organization. Got into a fight with retired commentator Daniel Cormier. Got into a fight with Ian Garry after this fight kind of came out. He posted a video on social media. He got into a fight with Kevin Holland after they fought, and they recently made up. But after every single little thing Joaquin Buckley does, he gets into a fight with individuals. Nothing that Joaquin Buckley does is without conflict or without little things coming up from it. And I think that's what makes Joaquin Buckley so special. I think he's got such an outward persona and personality that no matter what fight comes, it's going to be a trash talking affair. And I truly do think that Buckley is a very funny individual within the organization. Not a lot of people go out there and start dissing a heavyweight who, yes, might be retired, but it's like, 100 pounds heavier than you are when you weigh into the octagon. It is absolutely crazy, but Buckley is that guy. Buckley fears no man. He truly thinks that he's the alpha male in there in every single fight that he takes. Joaquin Buckley is one of the funniest guys inside the organization. He was trash talking Wonder Boy. He was trash talking Vicente Luque. He was trash talking Narzutin Rotaboyev. He's fighting Colby Covington now, and he's trash talking Colby. He's trash talking Ian Garry. Said he doesn't want to get herpes in there if he fought him. There are so many different things that Joaquin Buckley says, and he's truly a very funny individual and someone who's going to go out there and make fun of every little opponent, acquaintance, or anything he does, because that's who Joaquin Buckley is. At number 4, best trash talker inside the organization, I actually have Ilia El Matador Topuria, and I think Ilia Topuria's trash talk, like I said, kind of like Jon Jones, just stems from his sheer, just absolute confidence that he just exudes when he steps into the octagon. At the press conference with Volk, yes, it was trash talk saying that he would knock him out first round. He would knock out Holloway first round, but it's just because he's confident in himself. He knocked out Volk in the second round. No one really does that. Islam was the only person to really knock out Volk. And then with Max Holloway, no one has been able to knock out Holloway or knock him down, and he went out there and said that he was going to do it. Yes, it's trash talk, but I think it's Ilia's just extreme confidence in himself. We look at that Paddy Pimblett trash talk that he had where Paddy threw the water bottle at him, and Ilia was going in there saying that he would, do so much stuff to Paddy. And like I said, I know Ilia was talking so much smack, but he would absolutely destroy Paddy Pimblett if they got into a fight with one another. And really, Ilia Topuria just knows of how genuinely good he is, of how special he is inside the organization, of how he knows every little thing he does is going to be followed with absolutely great things coming behind him. Like I said, trash talking Volkanovski got all the fans to hate him, but all made his win so much bigger. Trash talking Max Holloway, all the fans knew that this is what Topuria does, and he went in there and backed it up with a KO over Max Holloway. I think Ilia Topuria is someone who will trash talk every single opponent that he has. I don't know if you would trash talk Volkanovski again, if you trash talk Holloway, but someone like Aljamain Sterling, Movsar Evloev, Diego Lopez, I think anyone like that, Ilia Topuria is going to go in there with that extreme confidence that he is going to do whatever it takes. He would take their life outside the organization to ultimately show that he is the better fighter, and I think that just his trash talk is levels above everyone. At number 3, I have Mr. Sean Strickland. Now, Sean Strickland is one of the funniest individuals inside the UFC. At that UFC 276 press conference, the first press conference we really got to see Sean Strickland at, he was talking about Israel Adesanya's painted nails, his frosted fingertips, how he got KO'd by Alex Pereira, who Sean Strickland was fighting. He was going off on Israel Adesanya. His next press conference at UFC 293 with Adesanya was talking about how he was the Chinese champion, the ultimate Chinaman out there, of how he would never lose to a guy who paints his nails. Sean Strickland was absolutely going off. You look at the UFC ceremonial press conference that happened right before UFC 296 with Leon Edwards versus Colby Covington, where Sean Strickland was absolutely bashing Colby Covington. He was bashing Dricus Du Plessis, and one of the best trash-talking press conferences we have ever seen in UFC history. But also, Sean Strickland went in there to fight Dricus Du Plessis, and he was trash-talking him with some of the meanest stuff you could possibly ever say in there. And I genuinely think it has something to do with Sean Strickland doing his homework. I think he just knows a little bit about every single fighter that he goes up against, but I think it's also his just massive personality when he steps in the octagon. I think Sean Strickland's got an absolutely massive mouth on him, and for him to be in a free country is something that absolutely helps, and for him to be in a sport where trash talking is a major thing, it also helps with him too. You look at that fight with Abus Nurmagomedov, and my favorite quote ever was where Sean Strickland said, "Who the F is Abu?" And that lives rent-free in my head because he went in there and knocked out Abus Nurmagomedov in the second round. Sean Strickland is just the funniest trash talker inside the organization. I absolutely love hearing him, and genuinely, he is an absolute stud at the press conference table. At number 2, best trash talker inside the organization, I have Colby Chaos Covington. How can you else put Colby Chaos Covington anywhere inside the top 2 at this point? Colby is that good at trash talking. Now, yes, he steps over the line a little bit. He said that he was going to drag Leon Edwards down to where his father was. And if you don't know, Leon Edwards' father was sadly murdered at the age of 13 of Leon's childhood. And that was an absolutely low blow. But Colby Covington knows that UFC and mixed martial arts, there is no boundaries when it comes to trash talking. With his fight with Leon Edwards at UFC 296, British versus United States, brought up 1776 when United States took independence from Britain and said that that was going to be the exact same thing. He came out in a colonial outfit costume, absolutely living the role of an American colonist during that time, beating the British. Also with Kamaru Usman, he said he was taking steroids, he was taking all this type of stuff, of how he was a fake champion. He called him Marty Juiceman. He's got Rafael Dos Nachos. He's got so many different people out there that Colby Covington calls, and really, he's just such a funny dude when he steps foot in the octagon. I think Colby Covington is a professional trash talker. If you look at his UFC career, Colby Covington has gone out there and trash talked some of the most notable UFC welterweights in history. He trash talked Jorge Masvidal, trash talked Leon Edwards, he trash talked Kamaru Usman twice, trash talked Rafael Dos Anjos, trash talked Tyron Woodley, trash talked so many different individuals inside the UFC welterweight organization. And I think that Colby is just a step above being everyone else and using his just sheer trash talking ability to get into the opponent's head and take every little advantage inside the fight. Colby's not the most physically strong person. He's not the fastest person. He does got great cardio, but trash talking was something that Colby Covington could use to get the mental advantage over everyone. Colby Covington, number 2 best trash talker in the UFC right now. At number 1 best trash talker inside the UFC, and I'm going effective trash talking over like Colby's nonsense sometimes, is Dricus Du Plessis. And a lot of people might say, oh, Dricus is not number 1 best trash talker. Dricus can't be this and Dricus can't be that. Dricus has made his last 2 opponents cry from trash talking. UFC ceremonial press conference, UFC 296, right before that, he said that he would beat Sean Strickland harder than his dad beat him. And that is absolutely crazy to say, considering that Sean Strickland is open about his child abuse issue when he was a younger kid. He went out there and held no prisoners out there with that Sean Strickland press conference, UFC 305. Dricus Du Plessis said that does Israel Adesanya get reminded of his servants when he gets washed? And that wasn't a big thing that a lot of people caught on to, but Israel Adesanya grew up with servants who used to wash him because he was so poor in the lower lands of Africa and Nigeria. And also he kind of said that Israel Adesanya lost all of his fight and just fights for himself and is very selfish. And I think that that is something that was crazy that made Adesanya cry at that UFC 305 press conference, just because Adesanya is such a prideful guy. But Dricus Du Plessis is the most effective trash talker right now inside the organization. No matter what he says, he knows he can get into the person's heads. He knows it's mental warfare. And he said countlessly that if the person gets affected by my trash talk, that's their fault, not mine. I say whatever I want, and I'm going to use every little advantage that he can get to be inside the UFC octagon. And I think that that's something that inadvertently makes Dricus such a good fighter, because genuinely he is an absolute tank out there when it comes to trash talking. He talks so much smack to so many people, and no matter who you're fighting, Dricus Du Plessis is going to go out there and say what's on his mind, because he is that much of a trash talker. Thank you guys so much for watching this episode of Fight Season MMA, and please let me know what you think down below in the comment section about the top 10 best trash talkers in the UFC. My list: Kevin Holland at 10, Chito Vera at 9, Henry Cejudo at 8, Ian Machado Garry at 7, Jon Jones 6, Joaquin Buckley at 5, Ilia Topuria at 4, Sean Strickland at 3, Colby Covington at 2, and Dricus Du Plessis at 1. I think every one of these fighters understands that trash talking is the mental side of fighting, and kind of more or less than the physical side is how rough and durable you are mentally. And a lot of these fighters know if they can get that little advantage to get inside their head, they can go and make leaps and bounds over these fights. I think especially with that Dricus Du Plessis and Israel Adesanya fight, Izzy fought so emotional in that one, and he went out there and he was swinging the fence, just trying to decapitate Dricus every single time, but Dricus stayed composed, looked amazing in that one, and ultimately got the win. I think trash talking is one of the best things you can do, but also one of the worst things you can do, considering that you can turn some individuals into an absolute beast out there in the octagon. But ultimately, trash talking is something that is kind of losing and leaving the sport of UFC/MMA, and I truly wish that more fighters would take the roles of a Dricus Du Plessis, Colby Covington, Sean Strickland, Joaquin Buckley, to go out there and throw so much more shade at the opponent, because it only makes fanfare so much better within these fights and building up the promotion. Thank you guys so much for watching this episode of Fight Season MMA. Please leave a like, comment, and subscribe if you guys enjoy the UFC content. And while you're down there, please turn on the post notifications, just so you guys are always notified about UFC content releasing every single day. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will catch you guys very soon with more UFC content and news.